Yes, now it should work. So just a reminder that everyone needs to get their check-ins to be able to join us in the evenings. It's your responsibility to collect it. If you enter the room before a helping team member is there, make sure you go to the helping team member to collect your check-in. In regard to the attendance requirements, we already finished Tuesday, but for today the rules are the same. Both symposium sessions and at least one afternoon session. Tomorrow, at least 3 sessions throughout the day, and on Friday and Saturday, all of the sessions. For certificates, again, you will need 80% of the entire program, which adds up to at least 13 sessions. Again, quickly the rules. You have to be at the venue of your activity 5 minutes before it starts. If there are still spots 5 minutes before it starts, other people will be allowed in, even if they don't have the correct ticket. And if you are more than 10 minutes late, you will not receive your check-in, as it is very disturbing for the speakers and the other participants to have people walking in and out all the time. And if you need to leave a session to take a toilet break, you should leave your name tag with the helping team, and you'll get it back once you return. Here is also a quick reminder about the educational outcomes competition. So we're still collecting the outcomes you take of different sessions. And of course, we will have, again, our trainers doing the graphic recording. The graphic recording from yesterday's session is available outside of this room. And a quick reminder for some of the sessions that are happening in the next days. Yes, there's a mistake. The science excursion and the public health campaign are both happening on Thursday. So the times are correct, it's just Thursday, not Wednesday. And the sports sessions are still scheduled as planned. Tomorrow, a quick reminder again that the Vidirova workshop will start at 12, not 11:30. And that if you registered for sightseeing and do not show up, 10 euros will be deducted. And here is a quick reminder that we will still be selling EPSA merchandise during the coffee breaks. Today it will still be here, and then it will move to the hotel in the lobby. From today on, you can also start buying your raffle tickets and receiving your items. And proceeds of the raffle and the auction will both go to the support fund, as explained yesterday. And during the breaks, you can also observe the EPSA board and Meet Me Fair presentation, which will be played on this screen. And just a quick reminder for the lunch schedule, in case there's any confusion. For today, there's no dinner at the hotel because we will be eating at the Bulgarian night venue. Okay, and that is it in regards to the technical announcements. So we will now start with the second symposium day. Today we will have 5 presentations, and at the end, again, a panel discussion. The app is already open, so slido.com, you can join by typing in EPSA. If you have any questions during, you can already start sending them in and upvoting them, so we are ready for the panel discussion to ask the questions that the majority wants asked. And with this, we'll proceed to our first speaker, Mr. Rosen Dimitrov from Novartis, who will present the digital health ecosystem. So let's give a round of applause for our first speaker.
Good morning. My name is Rosen Dimitrov and I'm Public Affairs Manager in Novartis. And today I will speak in front of you about the digital health. And I want to start with a kind of clarification. It's not digital health, it's just health. Have you been to British Museum? Yes? Yeah. Okay, this is a very interesting art installation there. It's called From Cradle to Grave. And it's 14 meters of drugs. 14,000 tablets and syringes. All the drugs that a person could take life. And if we include the OTC drugs, it's 40,000. So this is our life through the medicines. And it's not just the illness. I like very much this graph because it has the two components of our life. It has the wellness part and it has the illness part. And behind this, we have three very basic needs of people. The first need, they're very simple, but in fact they're the base of all the policies and of all the work that we do every day. The first one is each of us, we don't want to get ill. We want to be healthy. The second basic need, if we get ill, we want to be cured. And the third one, if it's impossible to be cured, if it's a chronic disease, we just want to live a normal life with a good quality of life. So these things are very simple, but in fact behind them you can see all the policies and all the activities that we have as professionals. For example, I don't want to get ill. Here we have all the activities connected with health promotion, with prevention. Talking about cure, we have to be more focused on the outcomes of the healthcare services. And talking about the chronic diseases, again, we have to be very careful about the follow-up. So this is important because all our job is connected to these basic needs of the people and of the patients. And talking about the healthcare in general, there are three basic principles again. The first one, this is the coverage, the access to healthcare service. The second one, we need access to quality healthcare services. This is the question about the quality of the things, of the services we provide. And the third one, this is the outcome of this quality healthcare service. So this is according to the World Health Organization. Why this is important? Now in Europe, we don't have issues, or we don't have big issues with the coverage and the access to healthcare services. But still, we have to manage the quality issues of the healthcare systems, and we are still not very far in terms of follow-up of the outcomes of the services that we provide. And the framework of a healthcare system. This is just one slide, one graph, just to imagine the complexity of the healthcare system. We have the foundations with the population healthcare needs and the expectations of the people. We have the governance with the funding models. We have the platforms, how the healthcare system is organized in terms of policies. We have, of course, the workforce with the numbers, with the skills, with the support needed. And we have the tools, the equipment, the medicines. All these leads to the processes of care, and then we have the quality impact leading to better health, confidence in the system, and the economic benefit. Why I'm showing this to you? To see that the healthcare system is complex, and in each of the healthcare systems around Europe and around the world, we generate a lot of data, a huge amount of data. And unfortunately, we are not using this data now. This data stays in silos, it's locked in these silos, and we can't use it. And it's important for the access to the healthcare service, it's important for the quality management, and it's important for the follow-up of the outcome. And that's why the digital health solutions become more and more important. Because imagine all these bricks, the data there. Just one reminder, 90% of the data worldwide was created in the last 2 years. Well, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, but a lot of data is generated in healthcare. Imagine all the imaging, imagine all the genetic testing, imagine the electronic health records. It's a lot of data, and it's here, it's everywhere. And we need it in order to be able to manage this system, in order to have the quality service, and in order to have the outcome that we need. So think about it. Last year, a very interesting report of was presented in the European Parliament. It's called The Value of Health, Improving the Outcomes. And the focus of this report was not just on the cost, because everyone is talking about the cost of the healthcare service. The focus of this report was again the coverage, the quality, and the outcome. And the conclusions, we have to work a lot on the patient-reported outcomes. So we need to have the opinion and the results coming from patients. The second conclusion was connected with the fact that we need more outcomes of the healthcare services to be integrated in the policies of the European Union. And the third one, we have to work on the digital infrastructure in order to build this electronic health records and hospital systems connected across Europe. And to see the impact of these digital solutions and to see the types of digital solutions in order to know more about that, a very interesting report of McKinsey was published last year about Germany, because in Germany now they're working a lot in order to have their electronic healthcare working. So, according to this report, 26 digital solutions in Germany, in German healthcare system, can deliver up to 34 billion in savings. And you can read the 6 clusters of digital solutions: paperless data, online interaction, workflow automation, outcome transparency and decision support, patient self-care, and patient self-services. In fact, these are the main types of digital solutions. And because, everyone is talking about digital health, it's good to see the benefit for the healthcare system. 34 billion in savings for Germany. It's a lot. And digital health, of course, is giving a lot of very, very important solutions for the patients and for the healthcare system, but it's also a big business. You are now students, but maybe in the next years you will think also to be entrepreneurs to do something different. So bear in mind that digital health is becoming a big business now. And this is a map of the United States, so you can see what's happening, for example, in San Francisco. $3.8 billion. This is the investment of companies before their launch in the stock exchange. You can see the numbers, for example, in New York, 2.4 billion, Boston, 1.7 billion. It's really huge, and it's growing every year after year. Unfortunately, Europe is a little bit, not a little bit, it's behind. You can see, for example, London, 20 million. Compared to the billions in San Francisco, it's really not too much. So that's why last year, during the European presidency, the presidency of the Council of the European Union, the Bulgarian presidency, Roberto Viola from the European Commission, he was here during the Digital Assembly in Sofia, and he said 2 very important things in his presentation. The first one, the new goal for Europe is a data-driven healthcare system. So data and digital is very, very important, according to the European Commission. And the other thing that inspired us was data-driven healthcare should not be some state-controlled enterprise, but rather an ecosystem. We are working every day with the authorities here and everywhere in the countries, and we see all the issues we have. It's really difficult, and that's why it's the perception of the European Commission that it can't be state-controlled enterprise. It should be an ecosystem. That's why the title of my presentation is about the digital health ecosystem. And what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem in biology, this is the interaction between living creatures and the non-living environment, and all the connections and all the between them. And regarding the business ecosystem, it's almost the same. It's again the multilateral interconnection between partners with focus on the shared vision. It sounds a little bit complicated, but it's not. It's important to have someone, an orchestrator. It could be a company, it could be a couple of companies, or it could be an organization. And that's why here in Bulgaria we decided to create such an organization, and it's called Digital Health and Innovation Cluster Bulgaria. We did it last year, but it was a result of several years of preparation, let's say. So this is the orchestrator of the Bulgarian digital health ecosystem. And the other thing, we need our value proposition. We need this shared value to work on. And our value proposition is in the vision and in the mission of our cluster we have here. So our vision is to create a data-driven healthcare to boost sustainability and efficiency in the system. How? By developing an ecosystem in healthcare that is open for private entrepreneurs and organizations able to provide the tools that create value, impact out of the vast technological and data resources. So in fact, we took the words of Roberto Viola in order to create this value proposition that is important for the authorities, that is important for the patients, that is important for the society, that is important for you, becoming also part of this ecosystem. And this is the this was the founding event of our cluster. We have 11 organizations, 9 companies, 2 NGOs. And now we have even more and more members attracted by this vision in order to build this ecosystem. Different companies doing different things like hospital systems, big data, telemedicine, whatever you can imagine. And Maya will present the solution, the digital solution of one of the companies later on. And why is this important for you? This is a very important question. It's important because digital is important. Remember this, digital is important. The second thing, if you want to develop into this area, you can't do it alone. Digital ecosystem is also important. And the third thing, we are important. And I want to prove the power of we with a couple of slides. You know Wikipedia, and it's a well-known fact that 90% of the students are using Wikipedia. Medical students are using Wikipedia. Maybe it's the same with the pharmacy students. So it is the most used source of medical information worldwide. And to imagine the amount of this medical information, it's almost 130 volumes if it's on the shelf like books. And why is it so useful? Because it has a different vision how it was done. You can see the linear type of thinking with the regular encyclopedia that you have on the bookshelf, and then you can see the connected thinking with the Wikipedia. Many people adding data, collaborating, networking. So this is the power of we. And this is the big change that is going on now and in the next couple of years, moving from IQ, you know IQ? To WeQ. WeQ is quite a little bit strong, you know. Okay, remember this is something very important. This is how we could be even more and more successful. And because it was Easter in the Catholic world and it will be Easter in the Orthodox world in a couple of days, I want you to read this very carefully. These are words from the Pope that were presented during a TED talk. So, you're the hope, and we are the revolution. Thank you. and she's the CEO of a very interesting digital company. It's called Find Me Cure. She's part of this company is part of the ecosystem here, and we are working together with them here in Bulgaria.
Thank you, Roshan. That's really inspiring. And to be honest, I learned that it was impossible for me to create my dreams without my team. And today I'm here to share with you not only my vision for digital healthcare, but mainly what it takes to innovate within healthcare. What it means to create a digital healthcare, or no matter what kind of healthcare we're naming it, the future of healthcare. So, first, a little bit more about me. Maya, this is me, with different hairstyle. And I wasn't so smart like you guys, so early back in my years when I was choosing my education, I didn't choose anything related to biology, to pharmaceutical, to medicine, though my heart always told me that the biggest asset that we all have is health. So I always wanted to work and to innovate and be creative in that space. And probably that's why my career, though I'm with business development background, it was always related to something to do with the healthcare system, with the healthcare ecosystem. So for 10 years I was doing mainly regulatory training in the pharmaceutical space. And one day something happened to me, and actually you'll hear this sentence from many other entrepreneurs. One day something happens to you, and then you decide to not just wait, but act. This thing that happened to me was the fact that my sister got diagnosed with a very severe chronic condition. There wasn't any treatment. I knew that clinical trials exist, and this is how I decided that I should do something about it, because I knew that it's not only her. There are millions of other people out there looking for clinical trials, not knowing how to find them, how to understand them, and how to join them. And I thought, okay, well, I know what's the traditional way of people joining clinical trials. Can we use the digital power to change that? And this is how me and my team, we created Find Me Cure. It's an infrastructure that allows people to volunteer for clinical trials online. It's the simple explanation. Of course, it's a lot more complicated, but the main goal is to connect the right people to the right clinical trials. But today I'm not here to tell you more about Find Me Cure. If any one of you want to find out more about it, you can connect on LinkedIn afterwards, and I'll be happy to share more. Today I'm here to share with you the main principles, the main lessons that I've learned in my journey. From doing regulations, pharmaceutical trainings like GCP, GMP, pharmacovigilance, etc., to creating a new company, a startup, and really bringing some kind of innovation in the healthcare space. So at the beginning, as every entrepreneur, I thought, okay, let's take it step by step. Let's do minor changes, and actually, in my view, these were minor changes, but in reality, these were really big changes. And we'll reach the final goal. We will be able to connect every patient to every clinical trial out there. But in reality, the healthcare is probably the most complicated ecosystem. It has so many stakeholders that you don't even imagine. You might think you know, but once you start creating your digital solution, or even like offline solution in the healthcare space, you realize that you have to pay really good attention on what are the people that are involved, what are the people that would use your solution, what are the people that would be impacted by your service. So lessons learned, number one, find out who's involved. Make sure that you understand their interests. Make sure you understand their involvement, because in the previous slide you can see that there are payers, there are caregivers, there is pharmaceutical industry, nurses, government, and so on and so forth. Of course, on top of it should be the patient, and I say should be the patient because that's very important. And they all have different perspectives. They all have different interests, different KPIs. In the industry world, that's really big for what's on top of your mind, what's your goal. So you should really understand very carefully what they care about, what they are into, and then align them into your solution. So that was lesson number one. After that, digital healthcare. It always comes with some kind of technology. And probably you've heard some of these like titles. Blockchain will revolutionize the healthcare space, not only healthcare. AI, artificial intelligence. We will have AI instead of doctors. Very, very bold messages. In our space, in the clinical trial space, for example, at the very beginning, we were having this vision where we will have these electronic health records, and then we will use artificial intelligence to read and translate electronic health records into matching patients to clinical trials. And I'm not saying this is impossible, but reality is that electronic health records exist only in a few countries, and it's not Europe, like UK probably. And even in the United States, where there are more electronic health records, the standards are, I think only in Boston were more than 100 different standards of electronic health records, which makes it almost impossible. So, knowing, being on top of it, using the technology that everyone is trying to say that this is the thing that will save us, is very good for branding, yes, but in reality, technology is just a tool, and it's not the final destination. So yes, probably we're speaking now about digital healthcare, we're speaking about technology, but in the end, not the technology, not the digital thing is important. The important thing is the outcome. If you want to help a patient, if you want to help improve your efficiency, productivity, think of the outcome and then choose your tools. It might be technology, it might be something else. And next, yes, this is probably the most impactful slide, I think. So being an entrepreneur might sound sexy, but in reality, it's a very hard thing. It's not like I have this vision, I have this goal, and I'll achieve that. In reality, it's really hard. It's a really hard thing. You have to be prepared that progress comes really slowly, and you have to be really patient, very focused, and be aware that many things can change down the road. The most important thing is that you have your principles and you follow them. So, yes, lessons learned number 3, progress comes slowly, and the most important thing, no matter what you do, no matter whether it's a company, it's a startup, it's a department, it's a new career, the most important thing is to find the best team to collaborate with and to be really focused. Everything else can be flexible, everything else can be changed, but especially in digital healthcare, as I said at the very beginning, there are many stakeholders, so the more people you have in your team understanding that, being able to bring the different stakeholders' perspective, the more successful you're going to be, no matter what you do. And I want to finish on a good note, actually, because I'm just speaking how hard it is, but actually it's a lot of fun, because we're the ones creating the future. And I want to show you a picture. I did these 2 pictures last December. It has been always a dream of mine to go to Cuba. And actually, that's a pharmacy, and it's not just one pharmacy. All the pharmacies in Cuba look like that. And it's very interesting because you, as a patient, you go into the pharmacy and you have your prescription, and then the lady there, she gets your prescription and she literally creates the medicine at the very moment. And I was thinking, wow, that's interesting. Perhaps we have these pharmacies back then, even in Europe. And then I realized, oh, actually, that's not the past, that's the future. Why? Because we have these new generation drugs. We now speak about personalized medicine, gene therapies, therapeutic monoclonals, human cell therapies, biosimilars, all new therapies. If you have to, if you look at the research, basically are dedicated on that to personalize, customize the solutions for us, for our health. And it's not only the therapies, it's not only these solutions. Which change as patients because we are different types of consumers. Now we expect everything like to be ready by yesterday. We expect that we can go on a website like Amazon, we can order something, and it's with us the next day. It's so simple. And our expectations are not just for Amazon and Facebook and all these technological companies. Our expectations are the same for healthcare. So if we have these expectations, then we have to build this future as well. And I think that very soon, hopefully sooner, we will speak about drugs tailored to me, to you, to all of us. But this won't happen unless we work together and make this future possible. So, as a final thought, partnership is really, really important. It has always been, but now it's even more important if we want to bring a better healthcare for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both speakers. Like I said before, the website is open, Slido, so if you have questions, feel free to send them in and upvote them. For now, we will continue with our next presentation, since all of the speakers will be joining us in the panel discussion where we will be able to discuss their speeches. And the next presentation will be given by Catarina Lopez Pereira from Medicines for Europe on the title of How Can Value-Added Medicines Address Healthcare Needs in the Non-Communicable Diseases Space. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catarina. I work at Medicines for Europe. We are an European association that represents generic, biosimilar, and value-added medicines, pharmaceutical industries across Europe. And before I move on with my presentation, which will focus on the role and the potential of our innovative sector, the value-added medicine sector, in this non-communicable disease space, I would like to thank the European Pharmaceutical Students Association for the great opportunity to be here today, so thank you so much for this. And also I would like to do a little market research with you and see if you already heard of value-added medicines. So please, if you already have heard about value-added medicines before, raise your hand. Okay, much better than I was expecting, I must admit. So, of course, some already knew because they work with me. I can see some before. But it's good. Also, so I can take a conclusion that some of the people already know what value-added medicines is, which is very surprising. But another conclusion can be that maybe you're still not awake and you didn't hear my question. That can be another conclusion. So I will ask again to check if you're paying attention to my presentation. But my goal here today is exactly this: is that you, in the end of the day, know what is a value-added medicine and what is the impact of a value-added medicine in the non-communicable disease space. So, moving on. Now I'm answering the question: what is a value-added medicine? So basically, a value-added medicine is an existing treatment, and then manufacturers look at this treatment that already existed and said, how can we provide new solutions for patients? How can we provide new solutions for healthcare professionals? How can we provide new solutions for payers? And then what they do is, imagine we have this medicine that already exists, and after 20 years of experience in the market, they say, oh, okay, this medicine is also effective in this new disease area. And a very good example is sildenafil. You know, probably you're very good that it was first used in as an antihypertensive, and now it's used in other indications. Then we have other examples of value-added medicines. For instance, imagine a medicine in schizophrenia. This is a very good example that you inject this medicine weekly, so the patient has to go to the hospital to have this injection weekly. And after you implement a long-acting system in this medicine, you can, instead of going every week to the hospital, you can go every month or every 2 months. So you reduce the frequency injection of these medicines. So this is another type of value-added medicine. Another one that is very clear and you probably are more aware of is the combination of two existing medicines. So they were isolated and together they have new effects, or a new efficacy, better efficacy, better safety, or for instance, better adherence. So instead of you have to take 2 pills a day, or you can have everything combined and take 1 pill. So these are examples of what value-added medicines are. And now you ask me, how can this contribute to non-communicable disease? So I believe that probably many presentations already define the space of non-communicable diseases and that express the impact of these diseases in terms of deaths globally. So they have a huge impact globally in terms of mortality. So 71% they represent 71% of all deaths globally per each year. And 2 ways of tackling non-communicable diseases are the prevention, so having a healthy lifestyle, and the other way is management. And here I share the vision of Rosen that have presented before, that you can, of course, try to cure the disease, but most of these diseases you have to manage the disease. And there are 2 ways of managing. So you can address the clinical aspects, or you can address also the inefficiencies related with this disease. So when we have looked to some evidence on the inefficiencies that these diseases can bring to the healthcare system, so you have, for instance, you can see polypharmacy in the elderly is one of the biggest inefficiencies. You have medication errors, but by far the biggest source of inefficiency for non-communicable diseases in the healthcare system is non-adherence. And that's how value-added medicines can enter into play in these diseases. So if you try to improve the frequency that you have to administer this medicine, instead of having high frequency, to reduce the frequency, improve the administration, the route of the administration of these medicines. If you can, as I mentioned before, have a long-acting system that will improve the frequency, or I mean, to reduce the frequency that you go to the hospital to have an injection, you're always contributing to the fact that the patient will feel more comfortable with his treatment, and by being more comfortable with his treatment, you will be more adherent to the treatment. Because in the end, to manage a condition is not only about efficacy and safety. The first step is that the patient is comfortable and he feels that the medicine is convenient for him. So by addressing adherence, you're actually addressing also other aspects like efficacy and safety. So in particular, when I focus on the therapeutic areas that represent non-communicable diseases, we are talking about asthma and schizophrenia. If we see the numbers, we see that both of the diseases have high burden in Europe in terms of costs, in terms of affecting people. So, for instance, asthma and COPD have affect 68 million people in Europe and have a burden of 82 billion for hospital admissions and costs associated. For schizophrenia, affects 24 million people in Europe and also have a 63 billion burden for rehospitalizations and relapses. So we have this burden associated with the disease, not only clinical but also costly, and this is very important in the management of the disease, that you consider both aspects, the cost inefficiencies and the clinical aspects. And here it's again how can value-added medicines relate to non-communicable disease. You can always improve this space and looking to what manufacturers can look is what you see these treatment, you see this patient, and you see how can I find new solutions for him? How can I improve the way he administers his medicine? How can I improve the time to administer his medicine? How can I improve how he relates with the medicine, if it's painful, less painful? So tackling all these barriers to the comfort and convenience of the patient. So these are examples of the different types of value-added medicines and the different contributions that they can bring. I've mentioned already some, the combination that can tackle the polypharmacy in elderly patients. For instance, the inhalers, auto-injectors, instead of the patient has to move to the hospital, it's much more comfortable if he has self-care and he can administer his medicine at home. We also have this more novel delivery technology, the nanoparticles, microchips, mini pumps that can deliver the medicine more precisely and reduce the frequency of treatment. But unfortunately, not all and these are the barriers for value-added medicines in Europe. When we have worked with IQV on a project to assess what happened to these medicines in Europe, most of them are not recognized, except very seldom situations, and mainly it's due to the fact of the authorities are not aware of the additional benefits of these medicines, and also for the fact that there is a huge imbalance on the evidence that is required to submit these medicines, and then the final reward of that these medicines can have from the authorities. So there are these two big barriers in Europe when we met what happens to these medicines, which are the evidence that is inadequate, and also the unawareness and the lack of recognition of the additional benefit of these medicines. But not all things are bad news, so we have been facing recent changes. So in Belgium we have a recent legislation that has actually changed and created a pathway for these medicines. So the price and reimbursement legislation in Belgium recognizes value-added medicines, which is something that we are now at Medicines for Europe, and that's our policy work at Medicines for Europe, is to mimetize the situation in Belgium to the other European countries. And the importance of recognizing these medicines, of providing adequate evidence that proves the additional value of these medicines, is that we have to think ahead and see the potential of this innovation for the non-communicable disease space in the future. So here I present two examples of the future of this innovation in the non-communicable disease space. So we have for a drug that is parathyroid hormone, that with a microchip implant you can store hundreds of doses of this medicine in this implant, and instead of have daily injections, which is very burdensome for the patient, you can have a precise automatic dosing. So you're guaranteeing not only the adherence, that is one of the biggest sources of inefficiency, but also make it more comfortable for the patient and then doesn't have to go to the hospital, and also the costs associated with hospital admissions and hospital visits are also covered if you change to this medication. The same situation happens with the mini pump implant. So this is for diabetes, and with this mini pump you pass from daily injections, is also again very burdensome, to a convenient dose that is only once or twice a year to put the implant. So all of these benefits that tackle the inefficiencies management of non-communicable diseases should be incentivized, and that's one of the biggest messages I would like to bring to you. So value-added medicine is a step-by-step innovation. It's not the breakthrough innovation that we are used to. But as you can see for this image that is very illustrative, if you incentivize this step-by-step innovation, in the end you have a robotic leg and not a wooden leg. And that's a very important message that I would like to bring to you. So all types of innovation have a relevant role in the healthcare system, especially in non-communicable diseases, by improving benefits such as adherence and convenience for the patient, bringing more quality of life to the patient. Then it's important to think ahead and stimulate this type of innovation. And here I would like, as pharmacists, you can intervene in all the steps of this innovation, from R&D to the marketing of these medicines, but also then when, as clinician, to create awareness and to collect evidence, real-world evidence, to provide more information on the value and demonstrate more information on the value of these medicines. So basically this is my presentation. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to discuss this.
Okay, thank one question specific to this talk. So since we have 5 minutes left until the conclusion of the talk, we'll ask it now. And the question is, which is the EMA regulation for the value-added medicines?
So basically, you have the hybrid regulation that you can use for these medicines for reformulation, which is a change of route of administration. You can use the EMA is only the hybrid that you can use, and repurposed medicines you can do the normal procedure. But generally, most of our manufacturers use the decentralized procedures or the national procedures for marketing out these drugs. So for taking for approval. I don't know if I answered the question well asked me, but it's hybrid regulation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now proceed to our next talk, which will be given by Klaus Meyer, the president of the German Society for Oncology Pharmacy and of the European Society for Oncology Pharmacy. And the talk will be given on the topic of a multidisciplinary approach to non-communicable diseases.
Regarding the non-communicable disease. So I will say NCD, because this word is so long, that takes the whole of my lecture. Anyway, I know that there are differences everywhere. There are differences in education in universities everywhere. So when I was in a meeting in Dubai, I could talk with the students, and they go once a day in the week working practically beside their studies. So it was different to my experience in Germany. Anyway, so let's go ahead with this. I have nothing to declare, and let's just give you a short overview about that, what the European Society for Oncology Pharmacy is. It was built in 2000. And we are looking forward to support our members practically. So we don't make a meeting only every second year and that's it. So we do daily work, and it's presented on our homepage. It's open source. You will have the chance to look at it wherever you are when you're interested in oncology pharmacy. Let me come to that point for what we are fighting and what we are thinking about. We are not pharmacists for ourselves. We have chosen to be pharmacists because we want to support patients in their hard times, also in good times. And what you see here is the patient in the middle, and you see above then the pharmacy in the hospital. And then you see all around the pharmacist, around the patient. What do you think, how long, when we have an average lifetime, so maybe your lifetime will be longer, I heard it in the radio, you will have 10 years more than me. Anyway, what do you think in the moment, what the average lifetime is for a human being? Between women and men, I make no difference, so we make the middle of it. What do you think?
85?
Oh, the 85 would be very, very good, yeah. So around what I would say 78, 79 when we merge women and men together. So women live longer. That would be, what do you think, how much time a patient will stay in a hospital in this 78 years from birth to death?
5.
Sorry?
5.
5 what?
Years.
5 years, oh my God. I don't hope so. Anyway, good to say something. It's better to say nothing. No, it's yeah, that's life. When you don't show up, then you leave the message. So that's from the insurances we get the information that is around about 3 to 4 months of this 78 years. So you can imagine I'm a hospital pharmacist from origin. I've worked in the community pharmacy as well, but you can see all the hospital pharmacists have the inspiration that they are the middle of the world. Yeah? That they are the best and the most important person. So I can tell you, they can be the most important person for patient in 4 months for this 78 years, but not more. So what the patient will do without this wonderful hospital pharmacist? They have to survive without him. And they have a big chance to communicate with community pharmacists as well. So that's what is my message. So the message is to collaborate wherever we can when we have to focus on the patient and not to look at our own. So, what about the disease, the non-communicable disease? I just make a short intro. You know about this, you have a congress here about, you have heard about diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, chronic respiratory disease, and mental disorders. But you will see then, finally, that the second main reason for death is cancer. And we are going ahead, so I had the chance yesterday evening to have healthy food. So it was just a salad with a little bit of meat, but mostly salad. So, and I thought you are going ahead to survive against this, what should I say, a heart disease, because you eat well, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you are happy. So then you will survive the heart disease, but finally it will be the cancer who is reaching you. Because we know that cancer is touching those who are getting older. 60% of people who get cancer are older than 60 years. So when you expect to come to that end, you think, I will not be touched by it, so you can be sure 60% of you have the chance to get cancer after 60. And that means we can count every second man gets cancer, every third woman gets cancer. So mostly you make a joke, I say I start with counting 1 with me and with the next one with 2. So then I'm out of this business. But when you have friends, as I have, one has now pancreatic cancer, the other has colorectal cancer, the other has bladder cancer. So when you have the friends around you, then this counting is not pleasurable. So we see that the cancer is one of the main issues, what brings us to death, so we come all to death for sure. But we want not to come earlier to death for sure, not under really bad circumstances. So that's why we are thinking about that. What can we do? There was a WHO approach who was just focusing on this and saying we can do a lot. When we go to that issue that we say we reduce premature mortality, reduce the disease burden, we can improve the quality of life and make healthy life expectancy more equitable. But we have inequalities in Europe. We have inequalities because the drugs are not everywhere available. And those drugs who could be available are not affordable with the money we have. So this is something what sounds good, but we have to do hardly to bring it in practice. So therefore, we are just focusing on the European Union, and the European Union finally is focusing also on their members. And we had this issue in the last weeks in the European Parliament, that they are discussing about cancer medicine within the categories of essential medicines. They have not brought them into this, but they have talked about also about better protection of healthcare workers. And who has a chance to be with me together this afternoon in the workshop, we will have a chance to discuss about this issue, about healthcare workers, and what are the reasons and what are the options to work together. So the European Union has discussed this in reviewing the status, and has said not only the woodworkers with wooden and others in industrial chemistry, also workers like nurses and pharmacists who are touching the issue of cancer drugs are in the situation to become influenced by it. And that's why we have to work hardly to find a solution that these employees will be safe in their work. I show you the picture. Here you can see it's a nurse. I did it in my hospital. It was in 1987. Maybe several of you have been not only in the idea of being in life. So you see the nurse is standing beside, is preparing cytotoxic drugs. The other nurse is running around the desk, and a little bit to the right, you see the white thing is my friend, the doctor, he had breakfast. So, and this is the safe handling of cytotoxic drugs in that time. Today, we have this situation, that we have laminar air hoods and people working in front of them and be safe of that. So, but coming back to this picture, what is showing that in the year 1979, Falk, it's a doctor from Finland, has made a research about influencing healthcare workers with cytotoxic drugs. And he used the Ames test, and this is a picture of the Ames test at the right side. And you see that he was looking who has been involved, influenced by cytotoxic drugs in urine. You see on the left side is the patient, for sure. When they get drugs, they will have drugs in their urine. It would be ridiculous if not. So, but then you see on the right side, people who were running around but had no influence by the drugs. But in the middle you see nurses, and they found in the urine of nurses a different amount of cytotoxic drugs on Monday and on Thursday. Because on Monday they started this work, and on Thursday they had 4 days after done this work. So you see, it was increasing the amount of cytotoxic drugs in their urine. So and what is in urine has been before in the blood. So and what came to the blood has been inhalated or was brought over the skin surface. So you see, that's the reason why we're talking about this issue. Okay, the contamination of drug via reconstitution is another discussion. Because when they say they are not working safely, then we are thinking that the dermal contamination can arise from the drug. When you get the bottle from the industry delivered and you look into this outside contamination, you can see that it's one of the research of a lot of them, the outside contamination of the bottles, what companies are sending to the wards and to the pharmacy departments, it's highly recommended, and that's not what we are expecting. So we have to think about also this. And we give advices. Probably you see a research, what we did 2003 to 2018, we asked if you're using 2 gloves. So you will see why 2 gloves. Because it's better to have 2 gloves as to have 1 sick glove. Because between when you take the first glove over your hand and you take the second one, what is sterile for production, then you have the air barrier between these gloves. And the drug cannot jump over this barrier. When you have 1 glove, what is thicker, but it can have dermal contact, then the influence of the skin contact is higher. So that's why we have proposed to do that with 2 gloves. And you see, after this 15 years education, we made some progress. Also, we are asking companies to use the yellow hand logo. This yellow hand logo shows to everybody if it's delivered to the hospital, to the pharmacy, if you use it in the hospital, elsewhere, to put it on the box when you send it to the wards. You can see this yellow hand shows that this is some kind of drug what has to be handled with care. We don't make it some kind of poison logo or something like that, because that makes afraid. People have not to be afraid. We do deliver safety, but they have to be handled it with care, and that's important. We are asking also companies to put this on their boxes for free. We deliver them this logo, what we have developed 10 years ago, for free. So they have not to pay anything for it, but it's hardly to change behavior, also for companies. So that's why, for those who will talk with me this afternoon, we are talking also about the quality standard. In the year 1992, we started to develop the quality standard for oncology pharmacy care, and it's translated into 28 languages. You can find it on our homepage, download it by PDF, and you can use it wherever you are with all links and connections. Coming back to the patient, what I started with, and I want to finalize with the patient now. This is the Bill of Rights, what was declared by the European Parliament 4 years ago. And this Bill of Rights, only 4 sentences are included. And they say that the patient should have the opportunity to be supported by a healthcare service as request. And I think that's not too much what we are talking about. It's related to that what we say multidisciplinary collaboration. So the word is big, and we like as pharmacists not to say multidisciplinary, because that means often that the doctors from different areas are talking together. We use the word multi-professional, because pharmaceutical profession is different as physician's profession. And when they learn that the profession is identified as different to them, they can also identify what kind of support we can give them, in addition to that what they do in great work. And that's why we think the education communication is important. And then we are part of this program, what names Essential Requirements for Quality Cancer Care, in which all entities are explained, and especially the pharmacists. And this is papers who are being used to guidelines in the different countries. And on these guidelines, the partners, the oncologists, pharmacists, the surgeon, and so on, see the role of pharmacy explained in these papers. If you can download it also on our website. So, what we are doing ahead is bringing patient and healthcare profession together in the essential requirements. What is some kind of cancer care pathways? What gives us the role of clinical trials, and to deliver to the patient information. And the role of pharmacists in this is described, as I told you, in the small words what oncology pharmacists do. When we go back to the quality standard, we see that the standard is the base of specialization and accreditation. And to do that, we must know what kind of role we are playing. And now I show you some pictures about the financial situation for medical efficiency. When you see this, in some European countries spend mostly more as much others for comparable outcome, then you think, how can that be? You see here the outcome rate. Then you see the spended euros for this outcome rate from different countries. And then you see what has been spent for the same outcome. I can show you a different picture that shows you that very different outcome for the same patient when you spend the same for it. So you see here, Netherlands regarding to Finland, probably. The spending for colorectal cancer incidents, different thousands of euros, and the 5-year year survival of this colorectal cancer is similar. So then we have to ask why. And this is a discussion what we are doing. When we say, on the one hand side, we have the essential requirements, but on the other hand side, we have to look for the outcome. What do we achieve? What kind of money we are throwing into the world, and the outcome is bad. So this is why pharmacists should be involved in this procedure to think about essential treatment in cancer care regarding drugs. We are not running around with a knife, but our knife is the world, and we can teach and support. So that's why when I want to show you this curve, then you see the relationship in general between healthcare service and overall survival. And you see the curve. You see when you do nothing and you pay nothing, like it has been related to Turkey, then you see the outcome is bad. But you can also see when you see at US, they spend 5 or 4 times more than probably in Korea, and then the outcome is the same. That means here you can see the difference of healthcare systems. When you have a healthcare system, what is only related to money making, when it's private, then you see that you can pay such a lot, but you have no better life. So that's why we say it's important to be well educated and also post-well educated after we are not sure that the results of the studies in the universities are good enough to bring our role in the important way near to the patient. That's why we have installed the European Specialization Program for Oncology Pharmacy, what gives opportunity to all European countries to have a similar education level in oncology pharmacy. This is a technical structure. We have 50% e-learning. We have then 12% national trainings, and we have an international workshop one week in these 2 years for everybody. And we have explained the high standards of oncology pharmacy in our papers, what are also translated in all languages. And our colleagues use this paper and they take it, and they take it with them. There's only 4 pages, and they give it to the doctors when they don't know what oncology pharmacists are doing. It's very helpful. Finally, we can invite those who are interested in collaborating with us to the conference, what we have in Malta. I can tell you that I know it from Germany and from special other countries. In Germany, our German society, what is member of the European Society, has the opportunity to invite students in the last year of their studies, when they are mostly interested in oncology, pharmacy, and we make for them also year by year a training camp, what is giving them an impression about that, what kind of work we are doing. So in Germany we have nearly about 40-45 members in students' areas. They are really reflecting oncology pharmacy, not in general all pharmacy issues, because I think other societies will do it better. But in oncology we are the best, so for sure. So I'm a little bit Trump, you know. We are the best, or what I know. So anyway, this is what we like to say, and what we can invite you. And that's to bring it to the end. I have 2-3 slides to talk with you about future. I've talked with you about that, what is now status, where we have to fight with. Now I'm talking with you about the future. Everybody has a different impression what will be healthcare pharmacy in future. And we see there's publication in US, publication in Australia, also our colleagues in UK write a lot. So, and then you see that they are talking about technology. Pharmacists are talking mostly about at first technology, and they are talking as well at first about analytics and so something on. But for sure, they are talking also about that there can be a difference in production of drugs. And when you have heard that you will be able to download a program for your 3D printer at home to print a gun, you have only to buy the bullet and then you can shoot yourself or others. Yeah? Quite easy today. This will go ahead that companies will deliver a special ink for the patient at home and he can print his own pill by himself. So, and when you have this in mind, then you can have an idea what kind of role pharmacy could have in the future when they only have in mind to deliver drugs over the counter. That's why, let's think about that. And that's why we're thinking about global future activities, and we're thinking also about the role of pharmacists when it's going ahead with targeted therapy discussions today and in future. Therefore, the ESOP is doing this year every meetings, and I will do it now with you to summarize outline future focus, and we want to find a guidance for pharmacists, companies, research institutes, and so on, what the demand of our colleagues, and you are our colleagues in future as well as you are now as well our colleagues, to hear what will be your interest. Because there's only one world and there's only one future, and I think that we have to learn. So that's why I would like to switch over with you to the questions. That is a different program, I think, and then we can see what is in your mind, and then we come to an end.
So yes, we will again be using the Slido, but did everyone bring their green and red cards with them? Do you have them? I see some red in the back, so that means you have them. Okay, good. We see some. So for the yes and no questions, we'll be using that, and there will also be some questions in the app. So just so everyone's ready and.
Okay, so I will have to, because you know, old men don't have so much experience with the new technology. So, okay, let's have a look. The first question is, what is your gender? So, are you male or female? So I can see it, okay? so we like this question, because when we make it anonymously, so it's we collect them the starters. So what is your age? So it's under 20. Under 20. Some between 20 and 30 in the US, I think. Okay, thanks a lot. It's just using a little bit to wake up, huh? With your arms. Blood in the arms brings blood in the head. Yeah? So that's the first question I have. Do you think that technological development will lead to significant changes in pharmaceutical service? Yes, no, or maybe. So yes. Okay. Yeah. So now we see it also electronically. It's a pity that we cannot vote you with this. So we wait some seconds. Yeah? Yeah, that's the last question. So mostly multidisciplinary work. This is the last question or what?
Yes. This will be
Okay. So this is for this one? No. This is different question. So which question we are doing now? So you raise your hand and the others make it electronically, so we cannot follow that. Okay. So then the second question is, do you think that more communication between pharmacists and physicians will be required? Why not more? Thanks. Okay. Maybe? No. So everybody was for more communication. Then, do you think that pharmacists will be more likely to work outside of a hospital, for example, in patient home care? Who's thinking about that? Yes? Okay, so who's thinking about that? No? Okay, and who's thinking maybe? Oh, poor. Okay. That was mostly yes. So then do you think that the compounding of anti-cancer medication will be completely automated? Who is yes? Okay. Who is no? Okay, and who is maybe? Oh, sorry, it was 50-50. Okay. Do you think the number of biological drugs will increase? Yes? Okay. No? Okay, mostly yes. Okay. Do you think that biological will totally replace conventional anti-neoplastics? Who is for yes? Who is for no? Maybe? Okay, more maybe also. Okay. So, will increasing technology in the pharmacy reduce the workload of pharmacists? For yes? Increasing technology will reduce the workload of pharmacists. Who says yes? Okay. Who says no? Some go to sleep with this question. Or maybe mostly. Okay, not everybody has a car. Okay. So, will the increase in technology decrease the need for pharmacists? Will the increase in technology decrease the need for pharmacists? Yes? No? I think so. You must look for your future. So, a hospital pharmacist is going to spread most of their working hours on the ward instead of pharmacies. Yes or no? Will the pharmacists go in future more to the ward or will they stay in the pharmacy department? Yes? Who's for yes? Stay in the pharmacy department? And who is for no? Is going to the ward more? Ward? You know what is a ward? Where the patients are. You could say go to the patient probably. It's nicer. Not walking around the ward. So anyway, so that was no answer. So can we just try again? So this is a very important question. What do you think? Will the pharmacist stay in his own area and work there in a wonderful way? Or will he go near to the patient and talk to the patient and support the multidisciplinarity? What do you think? What will be the future? Will he stay in the pharmacy more? Yes? No. No. Okay. This is my idiotry. I'm asking yes or no, and somebody has a red and somebody a green card. So that's okay. That means the red card is no and was signed up by yes. So I told you I'm not famous for this kind of thing. Also not for good paperwork, it seems to me. So but could we go ahead with this that I asked and you only rise up your hand and then if it's red or green makes no difference? Yeah? Thanks a lot. So I just ask again, what do you think that hospital pharmacists are going to spend most of their working hours in the ward instead of pharmacies? Do you think yes, then raise your hand. Okay. And no, who votes for no? Okay, this was a good vote. 3 last question. Do you consider yourself competent? You are competent as well. You can learn. You have time to learn, and become competent as well. So, do you consider yourself competent in patient education, interviewing clinicians, and pharmaceutical communication technicians? Do you feel competent? Yes? No? Oh my God. So I can explain to you, follow our teaching program, you will learn about it. So, and coming to the last question, which of the following will be the focus of oncology pharmacy in the future? And now I have 4 questions and you can raise up 2 times. Yeah? Only 4 questions 2 times raising up in maximum. Okay? So my question was, which are the following will be the focus of oncology pharmacy in future? You have not so big experience with oncology pharmacy, but never mind, I'm interested in your answer. So, will there be mostly So you've done it, okay. So it's a good answer. Thank you very much for your question.
Okay, thank you very much for this very interactive talk. We'll now proceed to the last talk of this session, which will be given by Jurate Slakaite, who is the AESGP Director General, and the talk will be given on the topic of self-care and non-communicable diseases.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see the room full. Just to check if the last lines are still awake, wave your hands if you are not sleeping yet. Great. I heard that hands up is more blood to the brain, so I'm just trying to continue the lead. So I think, again, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Since the last time I was talking to you, I have changed the job. So I'm now leading an association representing self-care industry. And what self-care industry is, you have a map of the companies that are affiliated to AHGP, as well as the national associations. Self-care, from our perspective, embraces 3 product categories. So our companies normally would produce non-prescription medicines. They also normally do food supplements, and they also produce medical devices. And medical devices that we encompass are substance-based. And it's a new concept which, by discussing together with your colleagues at EPSA executive team, we will suggest discussing maybe in upcoming meetings, because this is a new emerging science and regulatory science, and it's quite important that pharmacists know about it. So this is my disclaimer. I work for the Industry Association, which mission is to advance responsible self-care by enabling citizens to take better care of their health needs, and at the same time contribute to the sustainability of European healthcare systems. I will talk a lot today about sustainability of the health systems, because I think all the previous speakers already showed that non-communicable diseases burden is rising. There are more people that health systems need to care for, and we also know that there is not much more money in the system. So something has to be changed, and in order to have the health systems effective, providing accessible and high quality services, we need to rethink the way we deliver health services. I think this has already been said, and Klaus already asked you a question. So what is the average life you may actually expect to live being a European? On average will be 81 years. There are discrepancies, of course, between the old members of the European Union versus the new members of the European Union. On average, women will live longer than men. I wonder why. Maybe we're doing something towards that, being a woman. But one of the things talking also is that what is very important to bear in mind is not how long you are going to live, but in which health you are going to live and how long you are going to be living active and healthy life. Aging and health is becoming one of the priorities, because active and healthy aging is one of the policy drivers also in looking into how to organize health systems, because all the health systems should aspire to make sure that people can maintain good health as long as possible and enjoy being active and doing their normal life. Normal life for different people is different things. Some like to walk a lot, others are going to prefer to take a car. So actually helping an active aging is very different from one person to the other. Main causes of mortality also have been mentioned. That's why I guess the topic of this year's symposium of EPSA is non-communicable diseases, because you can see that leading cause of death in Europe is actually non-communicable diseases, especially cardiovascular. Cancer is also a non-communicable disease, because more and more of us that are going to be cancer patients will survive. So cancer is becoming also a non-communicable disease. Respiratory system, and these are mainly the causes why people die prematurely. Partly is affected by our lifestyle. Being in the Congress and being an EPSA member for the lifetime, I also know that this is very prevalent during the EPSA congresses. If we look at the statistics, Europeans, 1 in 5 are smoking daily. 1 in 5 is drinking regularly, and 15% of us are obese. So this is also partly why we have a rise of the non-communicable diseases, because we choose certain lifestyle, and I think certain lifestyle also depends on where we are coming from. Another important factor in looking into the changes that are affecting our health systems is that consumer-patient journey starts online these days. I just want to test with you how many of you have consulted in the past Dr. Google looking for the health information. I certainly do. I certainly look up on the Google, and actually statistically, if you look, this is a Eurostat chart which shows you how often people go online for various purposes. So most of us go online because we want to send an email. Then we may have a telephone or video conversation. We will go to use social networks. We will read the news. And then number 5 is seeking health information. And to my surprise, actually 55 to 74 age group is as active as the 25 to 54, which is the age group I belong to. Many of you, 16 to 24, are less likely to go online because you still don't have the health problems, I think. So this is just to remember ourselves that even before you go to the pharmacy or you go to the doctor, you will go online to look for the health information, and this is something important to bear in mind. Why we are doing this and why it is important, the way we actually approach health information, is that this is a chart to show you that actually in 2008, more or less, the number of connected devices surpassed the number of the people living on Earth. We all have a smartphone. Who doesn't have a smartphone? Everyone has a smartphone, seems. And more likely that your parents already have a smartphone, grandparents, some of them may also have a smartphone. Last time I went to a doctor's office, I saw a grandfather around 70 taking a photo of the working time of his doctor. So this is becoming more and more prevalent. So actually we have to bear in mind that these are the factors that are also influencing our health system. The bad news is that spending on health is rising. So today we are spending around 7% of GDP in Europe on the health, and of course projection is negative, so expenditure is going to rise because we know that people are going to live longer, so they are most likely going to suffer from non-communicable diseases and everything else. So the equation today is the following. We have more patients in the system. We have multimorbidities. So a person that has a cardiovascular disease very often will develop a diabetes and will develop something else. They will take more medicine. So did I disconnect myself? These people are more likely to be on 5 or maybe even 10 medicines at the same time. This means more challenges. The health workforce, we are suffering from shortages, and we know that to recruit a general practice doctor in, for example, rural area is becoming more and more difficult. And then this coupled with the fewer resources in the health systems, less money to pay for this, the equation becomes very difficult when the demand is to deliver better or even the excellent outcomes for more patients in the system. It seems I have disconnected myself.
No.
This is entertainment. we are back. So actually, it was a nice break because I was getting to this slide. So you know that I represent self-care industry, and the question is, what is our link with the non-communicable diseases? And the link is nicely illustrated in this pyramid. So as Klaus said, actually all of us that are going to live to our 80s will spend in the hospital 3 to 4 months. And we are going to cost in these 3 or 4 months to the health systems actually more than we are costing if we are doing the self-care. And this is a very important figure if you think of how to make the healthcare systems more sustainable, is how can we put more people in the bottom of the pyramid, which is going to cost less to the health systems. And by transferring more patients from the tertiary care, from the hospitals, actually to the primary care, or ideally by keeping them in the community, allows us to have a higher quality care in the hospitals, making sure that the ones who get in the hospitals can get the best service and they don't need to wait for it. Looking in the UK alone, 5.2 million people every year go to the GP because they have a blocked nose. And I would say this is a terrible waste of the resources, because these people should come into the pharmacy and buy some medication would simply relieve their symptoms, and they would be perfectly self-managing themselves. So more than congested nose, I'm sure if you looked at other indications like upset stomach, if you looked into someone who has simply a cold, who has a sore throat, many of these people still use the health systems unreasonably. They go to the either emergency department or to their doctor instead of actually turning into the pharmacy. If you think about health system as the iceberg, we actually normally focus on the top of the iceberg, so the iceberg which we pay for as the taxpayers, but the one which keeps the iceberg from sinking actually is things that we do every day as being just simply individuals by self-managing ourselves and self-managing our healthcare needs. And by thinking of the future, we need to make sure that more of those that are sustaining the iceberg are empowered and enabled to do so. When we talk about self-care, very important is to remind ourselves what do we mean by self-care. And actually self-care is a very broad concept, and it encompasses many things that we do daily without thinking. One of them is making healthy lifestyle choices. So yes, I agree with Klaus, you are having a very healthy dinner. Eating healthy, exercising regularly, maybe taking vitamins to supplement your diet. This is all what you do because you actually practice self-care. Making responsible use of medicines, be it prescribed medication or be it non-prescription medicines, is also part of your self-care journey. Self-recognizing the symptoms, so actually making sure that you seek professional care, so you go to the GP or you go to hospital only when it is needed, is also a part of your self-care journey. Self-monitoring, be it a chronic patient who is on diabetic medication and has to check his glucose levels, or be it someone who actually has a cold and simply following his symptoms, making sure it doesn't get worse, is also about self-monitoring. And of course, self-management is, especially people with the chronic conditions, this is a key. And more choices of technology that helps us to do so are available to all of us every day. At ASGP, we are very proud to be a platform of national associations. And similar to Klaus, I would like to share some of the best practices that we observe from our membership. For the ones in the audience, and I know that in EPSA normally you have a big group of the Portuguese students, we are very proud of the initiative by our Portuguese member, Abi Pharma, together with ANEF, Pharmacists Association, and together with the Society of the Pharmacists. This is a health education program put together. It develops various resources for the general public, so this is really intended for those individuals living in the community in how to practice responsible self-care throughout the life. One of the important and very, I would say, innovative tools which was developed as part of the project and the program is the game, which is intended for the school children, which promotes the learning about the self-care medication and making sure that they know how to use them responsibly throughout life. So what I want to say is that in order to enable more self-care, we have to focus on the health literacy and education, and especially by pharmacists to the general public in how to first to self-diagnose and to take the medication self-responsibly is important. This afternoon, together with Ruben, we are going to run a workshop in helping you to develop necessary skills on how to counsel the patients coming into the pharmacy presenting with the symptoms like cough and cold or diarrhea or constipation, etc. We are going to share with you some of the tools that you can use as a pharmacist, making sure that you get those, that you diagnose correctly and you help those patients to self-manage their conditions. This is another example from our Dutch member. Do we have any Dutch pharmacists in the audience? Great. So this is a resource from our Dutch colleagues in NetroPharm, which they have put together as well, because if you remember, many people go online to look for the health information, and we also know that on the internet you can find all sorts of things. So it's very important that the information which is provided by the industry, but as well by the pharmacists or societies at large, is correct, and actually it leads to the responsible choices when we are talking about healthcare. Also, what we see a lot is innovation beyond the pill. And we know that different technologies today offer different things. For example, measuring the health. I'm sure that all of you are checking and counting steps on your phones, or counting physical activity, or if you like running like myself, you definitely have an app which tells you how fast and how long you have run. These things are definitely helping us to track and to monitor and make sure that we are regularly exercising or eating healthy. Beyond that, we also use technology to access information on the health. We hopefully going to see in the future that the paper inserts of the medication is going to go online, which would provide in many cases possibilities to show videos, because not everyone is health literate or literate in general. Also, it will provide audio guides for the ones who cannot see and read properly. So I think that going from the paper to actually providing health information and the product information online has the vast possibilities to help people and to make sure that people are supported in making the right choices when it comes to their health. One of the other examples which I wanted to share is the partnership that often happens in the similar ways that happen in Portugal between the industry and the pharmacist. Any questions in the room? No questions? Okay, they're very shy. I see at least 3 or 4 of them. Okay, great. So actually, this is one of the great examples as well, because we also know that self-care resources, and especially in the pharmacy curricula, you don't get to talk that much about self-care in your curriculum. Therefore, our member Kazi in Croatia has come together with the Society of the Croatian Pharmacists and has published a resource about self-care options for the pharmacists, by the pharmacists, which is made available, and I think the first edition has already sold out and they are printing the second. It has compiled altogether all self-manageable conditions with the possible medication and other options for the treatment, and this has been a valuable resource provided to all the pharmacies in the Croatia. I think only few of you know that every second pack of medicines which leaves pharmacies is a non-prescription medicine. So if you think, I think the PG data says that around 40 million visits to pharmacy happens every day. If these 40 million, if all of them, or maybe 30 million purchase medication, it means that every day 50 million packs of non-prescription medicines has been bought by the patients. This is a unique opportunity to actually interact with those patients and make sure that first of all they get the right medication, but second of all that they are encouraged to do so next time, which means you are relieving pressure from the health systems. At ASGP we have an ingredient directory list which is publicly available, you can search it, which provides you a list of active ingredients that are available without prescription in different countries. In this directory we have more than 250 molecules. Unfortunately, the prevalence, or out of these 250 molecules, in some countries you have 150 and in some countries you will have 20. So one of the big aspirations of us is to make sure that Europeans can access more of those in all the pharmacies in Europe. We're also very proud by having the centralized procedure for putting the non-prescription medicines on the European market. Now we have 4 molecules that have been switched centrally, which means that from one day to another, they become OTC in all the European countries. And we also have a recognition, as I already mentioned, of substance-based medical devices in the European law. And what is substance-based medical devices? So these typically will look like medicines, but because they don't act pharmacologically, they are considered medical devices. And the typical example will be a nasal wash based on the salty water. Another example, for example, will be Smeticone, which traditionally was considered a medicine, but because it acts only mechanically, it is now being reclassified as a substance-based medical device. When we are looking at this map, and I don't have a pointer, but what I would like to show to you is the study which was done by AGT in 2002, and we did it together with the European Commission, and we looked at possible therapeutic areas that would benefit from having a self-care options. So if you look at the top, and I'm very bad with the right or left, but if you look at the top corner closer to me, you will see most of the options that we have today are self-diagnosed for the short-term use. So you have already self-care options for acne treatment, for the allergy, for cold, for cough, emergency contraception, fever, flu prevention, etc. Aspiration of our industry is to move actually down to the other side of the slide and move towards more chronic conditions, because we believe that with the empowerment of the pharmacists and more services coming into the pharmacies, we can have more medication which would be prescribed by the pharmacist, which would have possibly a self-care status. And when you are thinking about those conditions, we are thinking about anxiety, about asthma, about chronic insomnia, possibly herpes. We are thinking also possibly about hypertension, etc., etc. So we think that this is where we are moving as an industry, and this is also, if you think about pyramid, this is also intention of many policymakers to push more responsibility on the population to care for themselves, and also to bear the burden of paying for those medications themselves. So in conclusion, what I wanted to share with you is that when you think about non-communicable diseases, you have to think also of the burden of these diseases in the whole health system. If we want to keep our health systems performing, if we want to deliver good quality care to the oncology patients or to any other patients that are suffering from chronic diseases, we want to make sure that there is money, that health services are accessible. So if you want to see your specialist, you don't need to wait 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or in some countries you actually have to wait even for half a year to be seen. So in order to do this, we have to rethink how we deliver the healthcare. So we need to go to actually the bottom of the pyramid, and we have to make sure that most of the people first self-care themselves. They go to the pharmacy if needed, and rather seek professional care only if it is really necessary. We are still behind with the governments encouraging self-care, because I think it's very difficult for a politician who's going to openly say to the population that you have to pay for more health services, especially in the countries where everyone thinks that healthcare has to be for free, because it will be very difficult to win election if you say actually to people that they have to start paying a little bit more for their health themselves, in order to make sure that those who have a really difficult conditions have access to those. Self-care and self-medication, very often, especially if we talk to the doctors, they say to us that self-care and self-medication is a no-care, and people are going to die because they are not going to see their doctor. So I think this is still a paradigm which we have to change, and hopefully healthcare professionals, and I think pharmacists have already passed this line many centuries ago. However, with the medical doctors, they still have an intention to see everyone, even if it is a blocked nose. And I think simply there will be a point where they will have to admit that they cannot afford it and they don't have time for this. When we talk about the pharmacists, we think that pharmacists are at the top of this wave of change. And we see in many countries they're embracing self-care, and they are developing innovative services to deliver some of those more complex medications. We also advocate for the pharmacists read and write access to patient medication records, because this we think would be an enabler. Because imagine if you diagnose something or you dispense a medication which is a little bit more complex, he would like to make a record in his patient file, making sure that if worst comes to the worst, he can follow up, or either if he gets to the hospital has a full record of what the patient is taking. We think that technology is another enabler, and I just read today in the article that health data generated by all these digital technologies is valued at $200 billion in the world. So we definitely see that the technology companies, and we see that Apple, Amazon, you name it, are entering the healthcare sector, because definitely they are going to be offering solutions like virtual consultation, so maybe you will not need to go to the doctor at all, you are going to be talking with him over the phone. So we see that there is more and more technology-enabled health services coming, and why not to consider them as a self-care. And the long-term conditions, while some of them are already becoming a self-care solutions, we would like to see more of them, because we definitely think that if we were to sustain the top of the iceberg above the water, we definitely have to think of which conditions can be moved and can become as a self-care options. That's all what I wanted to tell you today, and I'm very glad to take any questions if you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have one question related to the speech in the app, so we'll ask it now since we have a couple more minutes before the break. So the question is, how can pharmacy students be more prepared to give advice on self-care options to patients?
So I think how you can be better prepared, come to our workshop in the afternoon, but this is a joke. I think in general, we had this discussion actually last night over dinner. The problem, and I have graduated from the pharmacy faculty as well, and I can tell you that the first day that I was in the pharmacy, I was really confused. I didn't recognize any boxes. I was afraid to talk to the people because all I knew was the chemical formulas. I knew a lot of side effects, so I used to scare people with those. And it was really, I think a couple of weeks were really, really stressful. And how to be better prepared, I think EPSA is already doing a great job, is that everything starts, if I said that you have to invest somewhere, you have to invest in your communication skills. Because I think one of the most important things is knowing how to talk to the people, from where you can actually start looking into your consultation skills, because good communication helps you to be good in consultation. There are plenty of books on consultation, there are plenty of courses on how to respond to the symptoms. Our industry is partnering with the pharmacy associations in many countries and developing CPD courses on responding to symptoms or self-care consultations, which hopefully will help pharmacists to be more confident in talking to the patients and making sure that they diagnose correctly and they get the right medication, or sometimes it's not medicines, it can be a medical device or food supplements in order to help them with the symptoms. And I would say that you can do a lot yourselves, and this is, EPSA Congress is one of those where you can actually make sure that you provide practical training to your colleagues, making sure that they develop the right set of skills from the early days while they are still students.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So we'll now proceed to the coffee break, and we'll have one more presentation when we return. We're not over yet. We will proceed when we close the session. Yes, we'll have one more presentation when we return, and then we'll go to the panel discussion. Again, feel free to already start using the app and uploading the questions. So once the panel starts, we already have the questions you want asked most on top. And now, yes, please proceed to the coffee break. There's the EPSA merchandise, and the EPSA raffle tickets are already being sold as well.
Ciências da Aplicação Física.